Let me be clear about something. I did not plan to end up permanently bonded to alien royalty. I am a maintenance engineer. I fix air recyclers. I argue with vending machines that refuse to give me my coffee. I once spent 11 hours repairing a toilet on deck 14, while a six-armed diplomat screamed at me in a language that sounded like gravel inside a blender. That is who I am. That is the man who somehow ended up soul-bonded to a 400-year-old vampire princess because his best friend dared him to talk to her. The universe has a sense of humor. Unfortunately, so do I. And mine tends to activate at the worst possible times. It started 3 months ago on Communion Station, Lyrith 9, a diplomatic hub the size of a small moon orbiting a neutron star. I had just finished a double shift replacing corroded plasma conduits on the station's lower ring. My hands were burned. My uniform smelled like ionized copper. I wanted exactly 2 things: a drink and silence. My buddy Raji wanted to give me neither. We were sitting in Thanos's Cantina, the most popular bar on the station, run by a 4-armed reptilian bartender who had seen everything the galaxy had to offer and was tired of all of it. The place was packed with species from every corner of the Communion: furred, scaled, translucent, bioluminescent, 400 species talking, arguing, and drinking things that would melt through a human stomach lining. And in the VIP section, behind a shimmering energy barrier, sat the Valdrothi. Humans call them space vampires. They earned that name honestly. The Valdrothi are pale, elegant, impossibly fast, and they feed on a compound found in the blood of most sentient species. A compound called luxine. Every species in the galaxy produces trace amounts of it, every species except humans. Humans produce 12 times the galactic average. The Valdrothi sitting in the VIP section that night was not just any Valdrothi. She was Princess Seraphiel Kaeldrath Vos Ulthari, 3rd daughter of the Valdrothi Empress, and she looked exactly how you would imagine a 400-year-old vampire princess would look. Silver white hair falling past her shoulders, crimson eyes that caught the light like polished gemstones, skin like carved marble. She sat perfectly still among her entourage, surrounded by diplomats who tripped over themselves to impress her, and she looked absolutely, devastatingly bored. Raji nudged me. He grinned the grin of a man about to say something he thought was funny and I was going to regret. "Go ask the vampire princess out," he said. "What is she going to do? Eat you?" Every alien within earshot went quiet. You have to understand something about the Valdrothi. They are apex predators. They sit on the Galactic High Council. They own entire star systems. Approaching one uninvited is a social death sentence. Approaching a princess uninvited could be an actual death sentence. I was 3 drinks in. My hands still smelled like burned copper. Somewhere in my brain, the part that handles self-preservation tried to raise an objection, but it was outvoted by the part that handles stubbornness and bad decisions. "Bet," I said. The energy barrier around the VIP section was designed to keep people out. I am a maintenance engineer. I installed that exact model of barrier on Deck 7 last month. I knew the bypass frequency. 1 tap of my wrist tool, and the barrier parted like a curtain. I walked through. I sat down across from the princess. Her bodyguard, a Valdrothi named Velith, had a blade at my throat before I finished settling into the chair. The entire cantina held its breath. I looked Princess Seraphiel directly in her crimson eyes and said the first thing that came to mind. "You look bored out of your mind. Want to get out of here and do something stupid?" She stared at me. Not with anger. Not with the cold disdain I expected. She stared at me with genuine confusion, as if I were a math equation that had produced an impossible result. "What?" she said. "Here is the thing nobody told me until later. Every species in the Communion feels instinctive, paralyzing terror in the presence of a Valdrothi. It is a pheromone-driven fear response, something burned into the biology of 1,000 worlds over millions of years of predation. When a Valdrothi looks at you, something ancient in your brain screams at you to run. Humans do not have the right receptors. We feel nothing. Zero. To me, Seraphiel was just a very pretty, very intense woman with unusual eyes. I did not flinch, because I had nothing to flinch from. She had never experienced that before. 400 years alive, and she had never once looked at someone who was not afraid of her. I could see the realization hit her in real time, and for half a second, behind all that royal composure, I saw something fragile, something curious. She told Velith to put the blade away. She told me I had 60 seconds to explain myself before she reconsidered her mercy. I told her the truth. My friend dared me. The dare was stupid. But she really did look bored. And the station's observation deck had the best view of the neutron star's magnetic storms tonight. And I happen to know the access codes because I fixed the viewport last week. She agreed. I still do not know why. Maybe it was the novelty. Maybe it was the fact that I talked to her like a person instead of a predator. Maybe she just wanted to see what would happen. We went to the observation deck. The neutron star was putting on a show that night, streams of magnetic energy dancing across the void in colors that human eyes were not really built to process. I talked too much, the way I always do when I am nervous. I told her about human constellations, about how sailors used to navigate by stars. I admitted I had never actually seen Earth's sky in person. I was born on a colony ship. The only stars I knew were the ones outside portholes and viewports. She said almost nothing the entire time. She just watched me with those crimson eyes, studying me the way a scientist studies something unprecedented. When she finally left, 2 hours later, she said, "You are the most foolish creature I have ever encountered." I said, "Yeah, but you smiled once." I counted. She did not deny it. Over the following weeks, she kept finding excuses to be near me. She called it anthropological curiosity. She said humans were a subject worthy of study. Velith, her bodyguard, looked like he was developing an ulcer. The station gossip network caught fire. A human engineer and a Valdrothi princess, seen eating together. She did not actually eat. She watched me eat, while I narrated every bite like a food critic, specifically because it annoyed her. It worked beautifully. She almost smiled 3 more times. I kept count. Then came the day everything changed. She was demonstrating Valdrothi martial forms in one of the training halls. I had insisted on learning. I was terrible at it. My footwork was wrong, my balance was laughable, and when she moved to correct my stance, her hand caught the edge of my wrist tool. A small cut. A single drop of blood hit the air. Every Valdrothi in the room froze. Velith's eyes went wide, his pupils dilating until the crimson nearly vanished. 3 Valdrothi observers gripped the walls like they needed something to hold on to. And Seraphiel, the composed, unshakable princess, who had not shown genuine emotion in centuries, began to tremble. The scent of my blood, saturated with 12 times the normal luxine concentration, filled the room. She told me later that it smelled like concentrated starlight, like warmth and fire, and every good thing distilled into a single drop. No species in the galaxy had ever produced blood that rich. Humans were, biochemically speaking, the most intoxicating thing the Valdrothi had ever encountered. She ordered the hall cleared. She gripped a metal railing so hard it bent under her fingers. She looked at me with an expression I had never seen on her face before. Raw, undisguised hunger. The ancient predator beneath 4 centuries of elegance, staring out through those crimson eyes. She told me to leave. I did not leave. I wrapped my hand with a strip from my sleeve, sat down next to her on the floor and asked, "Are you okay?" That broke something in her. Not the hunger, not the temptation. The fact that I had seen the monster, the real thing her species was beneath the beauty and the titles. And my first instinct was not to run. My first instinct was to ask if she was all right. She told me everything. She told me what Luxine was, what humans meant to her kind, and why the Valdrothi had kept their distance from humanity since first contact. It was not arrogance. It was fear. Fear of what they might become if they got too close to a species whose blood was effectively a drug they could not resist. I sat with that for a while. Then I said, "So you are telling me I am basically space catnip?" She said, "I am telling you that you are dangerously ignorant of your own value. That is what my performance reviews say too." She almost laughed. The sound surprised her more than the hunger had. Everything collapsed 3 weeks later. Word of our relationship reached the Valdrothi court. Empress Ulthari, Seraphiel's mother, appeared via secured hologram. She was ancient and terrifying, and spoke to me directly, which apparently violated about 40 protocols. She informed Seraphiel that a political marriage had been arranged with a rival house. Seraphiel was to return home immediately. The human was to be removed from proximity. This was not a suggestion. Seraphiel accepted. She was raised to accept. 4 centuries of discipline locked into place like armor, and she shut me out completely. She stopped coming to the cantina. She stopped answering my messages. When I saw her in the corridors, she looked through me like I was transparent. I refused to accept it. I am human. We are stubborn to the point of absurdity. We argue with vending machines. We climb mountains because they exist. We crossed an ocean in wooden boats because we wanted to know what was on the other side. We do not accept "that is how it has always been" as an answer to anything. I found an obscure clause in the Galactic Communion Charter. Article 19. The right of any citizen to challenge a member species' internal ruling if it infringed on bonds of mutual choosing. Nobody had ever used it. Nobody had ever been bold enough to challenge the Valdrathi in an open forum. I filed the challenge before Raji could physically stop me. The Communion Council was forced to hear my case. The Valdrathi delegation was furious. Velith looked like he was choosing between 3 different ways to end my life. Raji sat in the gallery with his head in his hands, muttering that I was going to die on a technicality. I stood in front of the entire Galactic Council, in my maintenance uniform because I did not own anything formal, and I made my argument. I was not a lawyer. I was not a diplomat. I was a man who fixed things for a living, and something was broken, and I intended to fix it. I talked about choice, about how every species in the communion had left their homeworld because they chose to reach for something greater, about how the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy still traded their children like currency in political games. I admitted, on the record, that I had hacked the security feeds to check on Seraphiel. This earned me a formal reprimand, which I accepted without breaking stride. Then I turned to her. She sat rigid and expressionless in the Valdrathi observation box, every inch the princess, every inch the mask. I said, I am not asking you to choose me. I am asking you to choose. Whatever you want, whoever you want, even if it is not me, but it should be your call. 400 years is too long to spend doing what you are told. The chamber went silent. Seraphiel stood. I watched 4 centuries of obedience fight against something new, something that had grown in the quiet spaces between bad jokes and neutron star light, and the scent of blood that smelled like sunlight. She walked across the chamber floor. She invoked the Kal Sithari, the blood bond. An ancient Valdrathi rite, older than the empire itself, unbreakable, superseding all political marriages and royal commands. It had not been performed in over 1,000 years. She took my hand, she bit. Golden light erupted through my veins, visible beneath my skin, pulsing with every heartbeat. Her crimson eyes flashed gold. The entire station felt it, a resonance in the subspace field, as if the fabric of reality itself paused to take notice. The Empress watched through her hologram. She was silent for a very long time. Then she said, "He will die in 60 years." Seraphiel held my glowing hand. Her voice was steady and sure, more certain than I had ever heard it. "Then I will make them count." That was 3 months ago. The political fallout was enormous, and then, surprisingly, it was not. The bond is sacred. Even the Empress cannot undo it. The rival house backed down. The council cited the event as a landmark in interspecies relations. I am still a maintenance engineer. I still fix recyclers and fight with vending machines. But now, when I come home to our shared quarters after a long shift, there is a 400-year-old vampire princess reading ancient texts on a datapad, and she looks up when I walk in, and she smiles, openly, without restraint, the way she never could before some loud, stubborn, mortal idiot sat down across from her and asked if she wanted to do something stupid. Raji still says I have a death wish. I tell him it is the opposite. For the first time in my life, I have something worth living for. She is immortal. I am not. We have maybe 60 years, 70 if the medical technology keeps improving. Some people would call that tragic. I call it a dare, and I never back down from a dare.